Hi, we're going to work on multiplying decimals tonight. Both positives and negatives. Just like with integers, you have positive and negative numbers, you can have positives and negatives with decimals. Let's take a look at this scenario where we would use multiplying decimals. Because why in the world do you ever need to multiply decimals in the real world? Well, here I have 78% off of a $59.99 jacket. And so since it is 78% off, that means 22% of the cost I'm going to have to pay. 78% I get to keep. So I'm going to multiply $59.99 times the 22% that I have to pay. These are both decimal numbers. So let's go ahead and multiply this. 2 times 9 is 18. 18, 19, 18, 19, 10, 11. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 9 is 18 plus 1 is 19. 2 times 9 is 18 plus 1 is 19. And 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11. Okay, so 8, 9 and 8, 17. 9 and 9 is 18 plus 1 is 19. 9 and 1 is 10 plus 1 more is 11. 3 ones is 3. And then 1. So I've got a whole bunch of numbers here. Now I have to see how many decimal places I have. So there's 2 decimal places here. And 2 decimal places here. 1, 2, 1, 2. So there's a total of 4 decimal places. So I'm going to move my decimal 4 places in my answer. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this leather jacket is going to cost me $13.19. Multiplying decimal numbers. Let's talk about the steps in multiplying decimal numbers. First of all, you multiply as if decimals were not there. Just multiply the numbers like normal. Count how many numbers are to the right of the decimals, and then place a decimal point in your answer with the same amount of numbers to the right. So, in this example, I have -1 34/100 times 9 8/10. So I'm going to multiply those two numbers as if the decimals weren't there. So I'm going to ignore the decimal. 134 times 98. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 3 more is 27. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. My placeholder. To hold my ones place here, I'm multiplying by the tens place now. 90 times 4, or 9 times 4. I get 36. Carry my 3. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 3 is 30. And then 9 times 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. I get 2, 13, 3, and 1. I have 2 decimal places up top and 1 on the bottom. That's 3 total. So 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So I have, and at this point I'm going to look. I have a negative number here, and this is a positive number. So when you multiply a negative times a positive, whether they're decimals or whether they're whole numbers, your answer is going to come out to be a negative, just like it would if it was -1 times 9. It'd be a -9 would be our answer, but it's -1 34/100 times 9 8/10. Our answer is still going to be a negative answer. -13 132 thousandths. Now, you are welcome to use Lattice if you like that, but please keep in mind that you do need to add your -1 when you're finished. So, and write your answer back out. -13.132. All right, let's try using those steps again. -2 66/100 times 1 25/100. 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 3 is 33. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13. Holding my ones place, moving on to the tens. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5. And then I put a placeholder in my ones and my tens place. I'm moving to my hundreds. 1 times everything up there is going to be that number. 1 times 6, 6, 1 times 6, 6, and 1 times 2, 2. I'm going to add it all together. And I get 0, 5, 12, 13, 3. I have 2 decimal places here. This is the point where I'm going to count decimal places and worry about my decimals. I have 2 down here. There's 1, 2, 1, 2. There's 2 numbers to the right of the decimal here, 2 numbers to the right here. So altogether there's 4 numbers to the right, and there should be 4 numbers to the right down here. So my decimal will go right here. 3 and 3,250 10,000ths. And then this was a negative times a negative number. So I have to pay attention to that and make sure that I put the correct sign on my answer. It's going to be a positive. All right, I also completed this using Lattice, if you like that strategy. And I got the same answer. All right, let's do some real-world application. My favorite drink at Starbucks cost me $2.73. I just found out that the price will be increasing 1 and 66/100 times this amount. With this increase, how much will I be spending now? So the cost is $2.73, and that's a cost. So it's a debt every time that I pay for it. How much will I be paying each time? So $2.73. The increase is is 1 and 66/100. I'm going to multiply those two to find out what the total increase is. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 1 is 43. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 is 16. 6 times 3 again is 18. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 1 is 43. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 is 16. 2 placeholders. Moving to the hundredths place, 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 2 is 2. Add it all up, and we get 8, 11, 13, 15, and 4. So I have 2 numbers to the right of the decimal here, and 2 numbers to the right of the decimal here, and that's 4 decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 and 5,318 10,000ths is my answer, but I have to answer in the form of a price, and we do not even go to the thousandths place in money. We stop at pennies, and pennies are in the hundredths place. So the cost to me for my Starbucks drink would be $4.53. All right, let's pause it and try these out. Let me read number 3 to you, and keep in mind this is a negative. These are both negatives. School lunches cost $14.50 per week. About how much would 15 5/10 weeks of lunches cost, or 15 1/2 weeks of lunches cost? All right, 350 times 275. So 9 and 6,250 10,000, and it's a negative times a positive, which means a negative times a positive is going to be a negative answer. All right, number 2, I've got a negative times a negative. I know my sign is automatically going to be positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. I'm just going to go ahead and put my sign there so I don't forget it. And then 1 and 33/100 times 4 and 66/100. So I'm going to multiply that over here where I have some space. So 6, and 1,978 10,000ths. And it's positive. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. 6.1978. And here it was a negative 9.625. I can add that 0 on the end, or I could leave it off. It's not really necessary. All right, number 3, application. School lunches cost $14.50 per week. About how much would 15.5 weeks of lunches cost, or 15 5/10? Okay, so $14.50 is the cost, and I have 15.5 weeks. Let's multiply it and see what we come out with. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. Moving to the tens place, 5 times 0 is, so I have to put a placeholder here in the ones. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. And 5 times 1 is 5, plus 7. Okay, same as what I had above, except with an extra 0. All right, 2 placeholders, moving to the hundredths. 1 times everything above is going to just be that number. So 0, 5, 4, 1. Add it all up. We get 0, 5, 7, 14, 12, 2, and I have 2 decimal places here and 1 here. That's 1, 2, 3 numbers behind the decimal. So school lunches would cost me $224.75.